Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Bismillah, alhamdulillah, wa salatu wa salamu ala rasulillah wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Uqba ibn Amir radiallahu anhu, he narrated a hadith that's collected in the Musnad of Ahmad, in which the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said, تَدْنُ الشَّمْسُ مِنَ الْأَرْضِ فَيَعْرَقُ النَّاسِ, talking about the day of judgment. This is the hadith in which the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam is describing what will happen on Yawm al-Qiyamah. It's a hadith, sisters, that the Prophet is saying what's going to happen on the day of judgment. So maybe that should strike some fear and make you stay quiet, inshallah. Okay, so the Prophet ﷺ said that تَدْنُ الشَّمْسُ مِنَ الْأَرْضِ فَيَعْرَقُ النَّاسِ, the sun will be brought near to the earth and the people will sweat. And there are other narrations speaking of that the sun will be brought to the gathering where the people will be resurrected. For waiting for their account to start, the sun will be brought very close to them. And this is what will cause the people to sweat. And the Prophet ﷺ continued that فَمِنَ النَّاسِ مَنْ يَبْلُغُ عَرَقُهُ أَقِبَيْهِ, some people from that gathering, their sweat will reach their heels. وَمِنْهُمْ مَنْ يَبْلُغُ إِلَى نِصْفِ السَّاقِ, for others their sweat will reach halfway to their shins. وَمِنْهُمْ مَنْ يَبْلُغُ إِلَى رُكْبَتَيْهِ, and for some their sweat will reach to their knees. وَمِنْهُمْ مَنْ يَبْلُغُ الْعَجُزَ, for some the sweat will reach to their backsides. وَمِنْهُمْ مَنْ يَبْلُغُ الْخَاصِرَةَ وَمِنْهُمْ مَنْ يَبْلُغُ مَنْكِبَيْهِ, and for others the sweat will reach up to their hips, and for others it will reach up to their shoulders. وَمِنْهُمْ مَنْ يَبْلُغُ عُنُقَهِ, and others the sweat will reach to their necks. وَمِنْهُمْ مَنْ يَبْلُغُ وَسَطَ فِيهِ وَمِنْهُمْ مَنْ يَبْلُغُ عَرَقَهُ, and for others it will reach to the half of their face, and worst of them all, some others will be completely drenched in their sweat. So these are the different levels for all of Bani Adam, that on the day of judgment the people will be running around out of the fear of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and they finally see that this is the promised day that Allah had talked about. Even believers, disbelievers, everyone alike will, from the horrors of that day, will sweat. Now, as the ulama explained, this sweating is based on the amount of disobedience someone may have had towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in this dunya life. So the more sins, more the sweat. Less the sins, less of the sweat, but everyone will be sweating because obviously that much of fear will be in everyone's hearts. So this is the horrific situation. Sun above our heads, whether it be a handspan or like a mile, whatever may be the case, extremely close, right? Look what happens to us at summertime. If it gets 90 degrees, we start boiling. We don't want to leave the house. And the sun is millions of light years away. So imagine when the sun is brought so close on top of our heads. Of course, this is an unimaginable type of sweat that the people will be sweating. Even though this is the situation, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave good news. And that will be the subject of our lecture. It's been narrated in quite a few books of ahadith, especially in Bukhari and Muslim, different versions of it. While the people are sweating, the Prophet ﷺ said in another hadith, narrated by Abu Hurairah radiallahu anhu and other companions, that سَبْعَةٌ يُظِلُّهُمُ اللَّهُ فِي ظِلِّهِ يَوْمَ لَا ظِلَّ إِلَّا ظِلُّهُ. 7 categories of people in that situation, when all of Bani Adam are running around sweating, 7 types of people will be given a shade. And that will be a shade from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala on a day when there is no shade except the shade that Allah provides. No one can find a tree to hide under or anything. And in the narration of Sahih Muslim, Salman al-Farisi radiallahu anhu, he narrated that this shade will come from the arsh of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Right? And we know that the arsh of Allah is the biggest creation that Allah has created. Right? So that arsh will provide the shade to 7 types of believers. They will be truly blessed. That again, just imagine that in that situation, people running around barefooted, uncircumcised, naked, which are all ahadith in Bukhari, and sweating. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will choose 7 categories of people. It doesn't mean only 7 people, but people who have these 7 types of characteristics, they will be included and blessed on that day. The very first one that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said is al-Imam al-Adil, a just Imam. Now the word Imam, of course, in the Shari'i context, we know Imam refers to the Imam of a masjid. But the word Imam is also the leader of the country. The word Imam is every man in their house, because he's the leader of the house. So those who have leadership position from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, they fulfill that category of being an Imam. But in this hadith, as the muhaddithun mentioned, number 1, it is referring to the leaders of countries. Right? The absolute Imam, the one who is the leader, whether he be a king, prime minister, president, doesn't matter, right? So the leader of the country. And the quality is that he is a just ruler. He has adalah, justice, fairness. Like you look at the Prophet ﷺ, who was the best leader that anyone could ever be. And what did he say? That the justice of Islam, when he was explaining to people what is the justice of Islam, he told the people, even if Fatima bint Muhammad steals, I will cut her hand off. Absolutely no one is above the law. No one has special privileges like we see all over the world today, right? If you're the president's 3rd cousin, doesn't matter if you've even graduated high school or not, you'll somehow get like a super nice job. Right? This is unfair. This is injustice. So in Islam, it does not matter who is doing what. When you are in the leadership position, even if it's your own children, your own siblings, your own parents, you carry out the law with justice, with fairness, just like Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mandated. So the just ruler is the one who obeys the commands of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He obeys the commands of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And by no means will he ever show any type of bias or unfairness towards someone, whether it be his friend or family. No one has any special privileges from this ruler. He judges people based on their merit. That's the justice of Islam. And then the second meaning of the Imam, the just Imam, is of course the Imam of every household, meaning us men who have wives and children. So this is the just ruler, how you govern your house. And the Prophet ﷺ said in another hadith in Bukhari, narrated by Umar radiallahu anhu, that كُلُّكُمْ رَاعٍ وَكُلُّكُمْ مَسْعُولٌ عَنْ رَعْيَتِهِ. All of you are shepherds. He was addressing the men specifically. All of you are shepherds, and you will be asked about your flock. And who's your flock? Your wife, your children. Right? So when we have the sisters talking and disturbing the lecture, you as the husbands will be asked about it on Yawm al-Qiyamah. I'm being straight up honest. Because it is fard on you to teach your wife to respect ilm before bringing her to the masajid. So you also share a burden of that sin. Okay, so this is just one common example because this is the first one I could think of right here. So everything that your wife and children do, as a man of the house, you are responsible over their actions. It's whether or not you taught them or you strove hard. Okay, as long as you made an attempt. Because it's not like the point, let's say, you can think of the example of Lut alayhi salam. His own wife was destroyed with the homosexuals when Jibreel alayhi salam was sent by Allah to destroy the town, right? His own wife did not listen to Tawheed. His own wife did not listen to the da'wah. But he tried his level best, right? It's not that he just sat around and let his wife do whatever she wanted. No, he explained the message wholeheartedly till the very last day when Allah said you have to leave the town. So he didn't give up, admonishing and trying to give her da'wah. So similarly, just think, just like the Prophet ﷺ says here, each and every one of you is a shepherd. How good would a shepherd be if he doesn't look at his sheep? If his sheep are wandering off, no shepherd would do that, right? So you have to be very mindful of what your household is doing. You yourself have to know the correct things, and you have to be mindful about what your spouse and children are doing. And in another narration, the Prophet ﷺ explained further that all of you will be questioned حتى يسأل الرجل عن أهل بيته أقام فيهم شرع الله أم أضاعه, until you will be asked and asked and asked, meaning on the day of judgment, until a man is asked about his own house. Did you establish the Sharia of Allah in your house, or did you cause it to get lost? That's what being a man means in Islam. Sure, sometimes it's not about your personal thing. The Sharia of Allah has to be implemented in your own house. Let's say we live in America. This is a non-Muslim land. We're not going to have Islamic law. This is not the goal for us Muslims, right? That we come to a non-Muslim land, oh, we have to bring the Sharia to... No, Sharia is for a Muslim land, right? If people want to know what the Sharia is, we give them da'wah. We explain it to them. Not a problem. However, each and every one of us, we have complete freedom to govern our own house the way we see fit. No one is stopping you. No one from the government is going to come bang on your door what you're doing inside the house. No one. Because this is the religious freedom that this country promises. No one cares what you're doing inside your house. Right? This is your private affair. So you still, even though you're living in a non-Muslim land, you have complete freedom from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that you live an Islamic household. You build an Islamic household, right? And as the man, this is the entire responsibility is on you as men, that you bring this system in your own house, right? Like unfortunately we have in a lot of situations, because of what they see, sitcoms, when I used to watch them when I was younger, every American sitcom had one common thing. The husband is stupid. The wife has to give him every single advice, how to spend the money, where to get the work, not to do this, not to do this. Every sitcom shows the man as a complete dummy. And the woman is the boss of the house. She's giving the entire idea. He literally doesn't know how to spend $1 in the right way if his wife doesn't advise him. Right? This is haram in Islam. And unfortunately, watching these shows and things like that, people get influenced. Allah made the man the leader of the house. Right? So women, children, we don't have the right to go against our father's authority or a woman against her husband's authority, as long as what he is commanding is from the Sharia of Allah. Now, of course, there's another hadith narrated by Ali radiallahu anhu that obedience, it's not, in anything that which the husband is saying that is wrong, right? Or the father is saying something wrong. That's different. As long as he's commanding things that are from the Sharia of Allah, it is fard on the wife and children to listen to the man, because he's the leader of the house. If, Allah forbid, he said something wrong, you don't listen to that wrong command, right? And rather you explain it to him, hey, based on the Quran and Hadith, you're actually making a wrong decision for the family. This is not appropriate, right? So family is supposed to have a discussion like that. But whatever the point is, that this is the number one person or type of person who will be shaded on the day of judgment. The just ruler, the one who is able to govern his flock of sheep with the absolute authority that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave according to the Quran and Sunnah, not personal agendas, not biased his own desires, not a person of whims and desires, okay? The second category of people, وَشَابٌ نَشْأَ فِي عِبَادَةِ رَبِّهِ, a young man or woman, a young person, youth, all right? So this is the youth now. The youth who grow up worshiping his Lord, right? Again, in many cultures, you will hear, oh, he or she's only 15 years old. His whole life is ahead of him, right? It's okay. You don't have to pray 5 times a day. Focus on school. Hijab can come later. You're still young. Many parents and grandparents talk this way to their children, as if Islam is for old people. It's not for young people. But here you have a clear hadith from the Prophet ﷺ. Young people from an early age, if they are those young men and women that from the age of 12, 13, 14 years old, when they reach puberty, from that day they are pious, to the best of their ability, as much as they can. They fear their Lord, and they love learning about Islam. They love doing activities, being part of the masjid, learning, correcting themselves as they gain knowledge, and so on and so forth. This is the young person. This is the person who will be shaded by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala on that day. So, immense reward for the youth to worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And throughout history, those who had impact for the different prophets and messengers, it was the youth. Like, even look at our Sahaba. If you look at the Quran scholars, who were they? Abdullah ibn Abbas, Abdullah ibn Mas'ud, Ubay ibn Ka'ab. These were teenagers when the Prophet ﷺ died. Like, for example, Abdullah ibn Abbas, he was only 12 or 13 years old when the Prophet died. And Abu Bakr and Umar used to come to him for tafsir. Or Osama bin Zayd, general of the entire Muslim army, he was only 16 years old. Right? So this is how the Muslims prepared their youth. Right? It's not that just you have to be 40, 50 years old, then you get responsibility. No. Imam Bukhari himself, the collector of this hadith, he started teaching people at the age of 10. Teaching. And by that time, you had to have an ijazah just to sit in his lecture. Meaning permission. Because back in the day, a masjid was not open to everybody. You can pray this, that, but when it comes to knowledge, you have to prove in character that you are worthy of listening to the knowledge. Right? So, to sit in Imam Bukhari's gatherings, other scholars had to give you permission. Yes, you have the permission to go sit in his gathering, but he's only 10 or 11 years old. Right? So, throughout history, we can give many, many examples that young people, they really understood Islam properly, they had wisdom, and they were active members of the community, and they did the most. Because think about it, as you grow old, your body gets tired. This is the sunnah of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So in that age of youth, when you have the most strength, you're supposed to do the most activities. This is the way Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made our bodies. When you have the most energy, be the most productive. You're going to school, you're getting degrees, preparing for the future of your life, but don't forget the most important thing, which will benefit you after death, which is being actively seekers of knowledge of Islam and doing the best that you can for your community, being active members of the community. And the third category of people, وَرَجُلٌ قَلْبُهُ مُعَلَّقٌ فِي الْمَسَاجِدِ, a man whose heart is attached, literally hanging by the walls of the masajid. So what does it mean? That the one, he loves to pray in the masjid every day, as much as he can. And his heart is attached to the masjid. So let's say he comes to the masjid for Salatul Fajr, he goes to work, he's at work, he's anticipating, when will Dhuhr time come so I can take a break from the dunya and return to the house of Allah. Then he prays Dhuhr, goes back to work. And he's anticipating, when is Asr going to come? Right? So that is the heart that is attached to the masjid. And this is only between the person and Allah, because no one knows the intention of a person except Allah, right? Sometimes, sure, people's intentions can become apparent because of the way they behave, right? But still, 100%, only Allah knows what is the intention of someone. So only Allah knows whose hearts are truly attached to the masajid for the right reasons, right? Now, if you're coming to the masjid to, make announcements, hey, I come to the masjid 5 times a day, right? This is not the point. This is not something to announce. Those who see will see you. You don't have to keep mentioning, I come here every day, or I come 5 times a day, right? Unfortunately, this has overcome many of us in our generation, right? We like to show off our deeds. We want to be appreciated for them. But we forget that the one who matters the most, or the only one that matters, which is Allah, He sees even something that you're doing in a corner of your room, even if there's no electricity, whatever may be the case, right? Let's say your lights are turned off at night, and you just happen to wake up in the middle of the night, and you sit there, your spouse is asleep, your children are asleep, and the room is dark, and you make some adhkar until you fall asleep. No one has seen you, but the one that matters has seen you. And you will have tremendous reward for that, right? So the heart of the person whose heart is attached to the masajid. And then the fourth category, وَرَجُلَانِ تَحَابَّ فِي اللَّهِ اجْتَمَعَ عَلَيْهِ وَتَفَرَّقَ عَلَيْهِ. 2 people who love each other for the sake of Allah. Who love each other for the sake of Allah. They meet only for Allah's pleasure, only for the sake of Allah, and they depart only for the sake of Allah. So they have no hidden agenda, right? They don't make relationship with each other because of some worldly benefit. No, it's for an Islamic benefit. That you and I, we can help each other in terms of Islam. We can work together and help the Muslims of the community for the sake of Islam, right? And you look at the Prophet ﷺ, when he came to Medina after the Hijrah, and of course the number of Sahaba grew, he used to pair few people. That this person, this is your best friend. That person, this is your best friend. Because this is human nature. Not every single person in a community will be able to work together. There's no problem. It doesn't mean that they are enemies who should, compete. How can they destroy each other, right? No. Different people have different personalities, right? Like so many of the Sahaba, they were paired by the Prophet ﷺ. Again, he was the best leader. He knew his community in and out. He knew that Umar may have a problem with that person. So let Umar stay with somebody who's tough like him, right? Or you look at how Salman al-Farsi and Abu Darda were like best friends. The Prophet ﷺ paired them up. So 2 people, anyone, 2 Muslims, that they love each other for the sake of Allah, they meet and they depart for benefit, right? Even if 2 Muslims do business together, right? They do it for the sake of Allah. They're not going to cheat each other. And the money that they open-heartedly make dua for each other as partners, that may we both share the Prophet and may Allah increase in our Prophets. And then they both come up with ideas that we have a business, we made, mashallah, lots of profit, this much is enough for me and you, the excess profit, let's do something for Allah, right? So these are business ventures that are blessed by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And then of course, as the scholars mentioned, 2 people who love each other for the sake of Allah, they meet and they depart only for Allah's sake. No one can fulfill this better than a husband and wife. They come from 2 different families. Hopefully not forced. Right? Otherwise this mutual love is not going to be there. That by choice, they chose a potential spouse who is inclined towards Islam. That those those of you who are single, whether male or female, that this is your number one priority. That when you get married, you want to choose someone who is inclined towards Islam, who you can work with, that you like, is compatible with you. You guys can live together. You're okay with the weaknesses she's okay with the weaknesses you have. You guys can help each other, build. But the point is, the marriage is for sake of Islam. That we protect each other from falling into haram. That's why we're getting married. That's, one of the main things. Second, we want to make a family based on Islam. Let's learn together. Let's work together. And they meet and depart only for the sake of Allah. So any friendship that is between two people for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, those two friends will be shaded by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala on the Day of Judgment, right? Like, so many times you'll see, it's like nowadays that true friendship, it's almost like these are stories. Because a lot of people, and this is a hadith, corruption will increase as we get closer to the end of times. But a true friend, right? A friend in need is a friend indeed, right? That's what it is. That a true friend, they love each other, they hate things for the sake of Allah. But what type of friends do we have? Let's say some teenager is kind of astray. Oh, he's such a good friend of mine. Why? Because he always hooks me up with some weed. No, that's a devil. That's not your friend. Right? That is not the friend that will benefit you. Rather, a good friend is the one, maybe you're friends with him, you kind of grew apart, but he's still advising you when he sees you. Hey man, we used to be neighbors. We played in the same block for like 10 years, but something just happened. You met with the wrong crowd in school, now you're into the wrong things. I still love you for the sake of Allah. Give them up. Let's rebuild on our friendship. Let's go back to how we used to be, right? So those are the sincere friends, right? They don't abandon you. Or also those who are friends for the sake of Allah. If you have some problem going on in your life, in your family, you can talk about it with your friend. And he'll listen to you. He'll advise you. If he doesn't know the answer, he may take you, he'll treat it as if it's his own problem. You know what, I don't know the answer, but I know so-and-so has the answer to this type of problem. Let's both of us go together. Let's talk to that person. He has more knowledge, more wisdom than both of us. So a friend, a true friend, for the sake of Allah, doesn't abandon people, right? He won't abandon his friend. And you look at how the Sahaba used to be with each other. They would literally sacrifice whatever they have in their homes for one another. Because the Islamic friendship, which is basically the brotherhood, right? That is the best type of friendship. That if you truly love each other for Allah, you became friends for the sake of Allah, for sure you will also get dunya benefit too. It's guaranteed. Like a true friend, if he sees you, maybe you lost your job, right? And mashallah, he still has money. He may quickly come in. He's like, you know what, here, let me just loan you some money, don't worry about it. You lost your job, just get back on your feet. Because he knows, he understands the pain, right? Don't be like the person who only makes a friendship when he needs the money, right? That's not good. Then you're not being sincere. So, but anyways, this is that we see that two people who love each other for the sake of Allah, they meet only for Allah's sake. And they depart only for Allah's sake. So anytime they spend time with each other, they benefit. Sure, you and your buddies can go play basketball, whatever may be the case, right? That's all fine. But maybe while in that basketball gathering, the 4 or 5 of you, as you're playing some hoops, taking a break, you discuss with each other what you heard in the lecture the past week. And you test one another who remembers this, that. Make every gathering beneficial. Have your entertainment. That's completely halal. Don't worry about it. As long as the entertainment is halal, of course, right? So playing basketball, no problem, right? So when you're having your halal entertainment, make it beneficial. That as Muslims you came together for some dunya recreational activity, but you came for Allah's sake. Because you need a break. This is from the deen. That go take a break. Do something. Do some physical activities. Get your mind off of life and the problems of life. Entertain your heart in a good way. But while you're doing it, have some Islamic discussion for a little bit, right? So that would make it a blessed gathering. Then the Prophet ﷺ said, number 5, وَرَجُلٌ طَلَبَتْهُ امْرَأَةٌ ذَاتُ مَنْصِبٍ وَجَمَالٍ فَقَالَ إِنِّي أَخَافُ اللَّهِ. A man who is approached by a beautiful woman to fall into haram, and he says, indeed, I fear Allah. And the same applies, right? A handsome man comes to a Muslim woman, and she says, I fear Allah, go away from me. I'm not interested in having a boyfriend, no dating, nothing of that sort, right? This is the person who will be shaded by Allah's shade. It's a very difficult task, especially for school kids, college kids, right? That's why, again, we emphasize that create an Islamic environment for the youth of our community, the school, things like that. That take them out of these fitna-filled environments. Let them enjoy learning and education in a more safer environment where they won't end up losing their religion or this or that. Wallahi, so many people I have seen. I remember one brother, he used to lead salah in Riyadh. Right? I mean, beautiful recitation. And he had ijazah and everything, of course. Right? He was a Saudi. Right? So he came to University of Texas. Within the first semester, he was gone. He could not even make the first semester. And we actually told him, Akhi, the way you were raised, and now all of a sudden you came to the Western University, right? You grew up in a place where you never saw a woman's face. And this is Texas, even in December, they're not dressed really that nicely, right? So he literally lost his mind. We did not see him in the masjid. We didn't see him anywhere. And then after a year, we met him again. He had forgotten more than half of the Quran. I said, this is from Allah. He had ijazah, right? Leading salah in masajid in Riyadh, where there are scholars, right? But this is what happens. This is how shaitan can take people away. That's why it's extremely, extremely important, brothers and sisters, if you have sons and daughters who are in their early 20s, whatever may be the case, help them get married. This is a very, very dangerous world we live in. Abdullah ibn Mas'ud radiallahu anhu, and again, he said something so amazing. He said, if I knew Allah gave me life for only 10 days, I would make sure that I got married in those 10 days. That's how much marriage is encouraged in Islam, right? Barring any type of physical problems and this and that. Those are special situations. We understand that. But this is something that you have to be motivated towards, especially if you're 20, 21 years old and whatever may be the case, right? You have to be motivated so that you are prevented from this falling into this type of sin that can destroy lives, right? So a young person or anybody, even if you're married, doesn't matter. This part of the hadith, it refers to everyone, right? Even if you're in your 50s, maybe a attractive co-worker approached you, whatever may be the case, right? But you say, no, I'm a Muslim, I don't do these type of things, and you turn away. Allah will reward that person immensely because it is, the heat of the moment. Many things can happen. But the one who is able to control his nafs at that moment, fearing Allah, then Allah gives him that equal type of reward. That you had the patience, you struggled immensely. So today is your reward. You get the shade. Then, number 6, وَرَجُلٌ تَصَدَّقَ بِصَدَقَةٍ فَأَخْفَاهَا حَتَّى لَا تَعْلَمُ شِمَالُهُ مَا تُنْفِقُ يَمِينُهُ. A person who loves giving charity. He gives charity left and right. And he gives charity in such secret that his left hand does not know what his right hand gave. But he is always available to give charity. Right? So this again shows off, clearly shunning that feeling of showing off. That sure, Allah has seen you. Anytime the masjid needs money, or the community needs money, whatever it is, right? Someone he gives regularly. If it's $20, $50, $1,000, based on ability, of course, from Allah. But he's regular. He always puts something. And he does it in secret. That his own left hand doesn't know what the right hand gives. Meaning absolutely no one. He doesn't boast about it to anybody. Right? The appreciation is purely from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He doesn't look to be thanked by the people. Right? And you look at all these Sahaba, wealthy Sahaba, Abdurrahman ibn Auf, Uthman, Talha, like billionaires of that time. Left and right, anytime the Prophet ﷺ needed help, they would give. Look at our mother, Khadija radiallahu anha. She supported the Prophet ﷺ financially as well. She had the means. Allah blessed her, and he wasn't that well off. She supported him in every possible way. Right? So these are the things that charity. Don't frown whenever the call to charity comes. The more you give, the more Allah will give you in return. Charity is something, as the ulama have mentioned. Allah loves charity so much. Even the non-Muslims who are generous, if you look around, the more they donate, the more they're getting in return. They help. Like, look at Bill Gates. Look at even these crazy celebrities. They do the most horrible of deeds, right? But they have Cancer Foundation, Orphan Foundation, this foundation, that foundation. They're always giving, right? They might give like $1 million, $500,000. Then they do a movie, even if it's the most foolish movie, they get $5-10 million, right? Or so you look at these type of things. But the difference is, the Muslim, we have the reward in the akhirah as well. For the mushrikun, their reward stops in the dunya, right? So this is something that you have to remember, that charity is always repaid by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in this dunya and especially in the akhirah, right? And then the last thing that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, the seventh category of people, وَرَجُلٌ ذَكَرَ اللَّهَ خَالِيًا فَفَاضَتْ عَيْنَاهُ. A person, when he is alone, he remembers Allah so much, he is fearful of Allah so much that he sheds tears when he's alone, right? So this is again about protecting your good deeds, not being seen by people, right? That when you are alone in the room, let's say when you're driving to work or coming back to your house from work, no one is seeing you, right? Recite some adhkar, make some dua, recite some Quran from memory, right? Make tawbah. Or when you're in your house, when your wife, children, no one's around. Or for the sisters, when her husband or children are not around. You remember Allah, you make some adhkar, you make dua, you make tawbah, and you shed a few tears, right? Absolutely no one has seen you except Allah. So that's the person who does this on a regular basis. That he is mindful of Allah in a situation when there is absolutely no one watching him except Allah, right? But and this is again something that the young people must be aware of, that all of us, we have this mentality. Mom and dad are not here, let's just go crazy. No. The one who can imprison your parents sees what you're doing, right? So this is the definition of taqwa. That you have the fear of Allah even when you are by yourself. Even when you're by yourself. So as you can see, all these 7 categories of people are connected with each other. When there is a just ruler, whether in the nation or in the house, it will definitely produce righteous young people. When there is a just system by a just ruler, that structure will produce righteous young people who will hear about Allah from a very early age, and which inshallah naturally would mean they understand the importance of worshiping Allah, right? And when someone grows up from an early age, definitely when he becomes older, his heart will be attached to the masjid. This is why the Prophet ﷺ, he would love for the children to come to the masjid. I know sometimes they make trouble, whatever may be the case. No problem. Let them run around, right? Let them run around. Or sometimes, culturally speaking, if they see a 10-year-old boy standing in the front row, go back. No, there's no hadith. Rather, the hadith says, the one who stands, it's his right. You don't have any right, someone else doesn't have the right to grab him and put him to the back. That's the hadith. It doesn't mention age, right? But of course, you wouldn't put a 2-year-old there because he doesn't understand, he's going to break the line. But I'm saying at least the one who has understanding and he knows how to pray, he'll pray, right? Age is not a factor in staying in the front row. So these are things that you want the young people to remember, right? Which is what is important, very important, that the masjid environment, that we make it youth friendly. Don't let them see things or witness things that's going to detach them from the masjid. This is the opposite. We want to attract them, let them enjoy, let them learn, right? Through that, they'll be attached to the masjid. So anyways, when a person, now as an elderly person, his heart is attached to the masjid, then of course, this person will know how to form relationships only for the sake of Allah. And when a person knows how to form relationships for the sake of Allah, he will be able to refuse illicit relationships, which Allah has not allowed, right? And then the one who is able to control himself, his desires or her desires in this manner, that even the most beautiful or the most handsome person came to seduce, but he or she was able to refrain, then of course this person will be a person who will also do a lot of charity work. And that person will, when he's alone, he'll cry for the sake of Allah. So all of these 7 types of people are connected. One brings forth the other. Okay? So, of course, only Allah knows how many people will be in these 7 categories, but the point is that be from them. If you can, be from all 7. Right? Especially as a man, you have the ability to be from all 7 because you will also have a leadership role in your house. If you're a woman, you can fulfill 6 out of the 7. Right? No problem. Or even if you can fulfill 2 or 3, Allah will help you fulfill the rest. But the point is, grab onto something. Grab onto something and have the niyyah that I want to be from at least one of these categories of the people. And stick to it, stick to it, stick to it. And then Allah will make it easy for you. So this is, we know the horrific situations on Yawm al-Qiyamah, but at the same time, Allah gives good news. And this is a tremendous good news for the believers. That if you're able to have this level of taqwa, the shade of Allah awaits you, when the rest of Bani Adam will be running around sweating, crying, screaming, and all sorts of things, right? So inshallah ta'ala, any questions? Sisters, as usual, you can pass them up, inshallah. Brothers, raise your hand. Yes. Alaikum salam.
You're always looking for loopholes. So you said if a handsome man or a beautiful woman approaches you, there are 2 parts to that.
Yeah.
What if a non-handsome man or a non-beautiful woman approaches you? Is that okay then?
No, this is for anybody. Any type of thing, right? So don't think that way.
Out of the charity of your heart, you feel sorry for such a person.
No, as crazy as it sounds, believe me, there are people who think this way, unfortunately.
And part B is, what if you don't wait for the person to approach and you approach the person yourself?
Yeah, that's even worse, right? So don't be like, it's like those people, the hadith says, the first glance is forgiven, right? And they don't blink their eyes. They're trying to keep their eyes open as long as they can just to stare. No, that's not what the hadith is talking about. Right? Okay. If you owe someone money but they said you don't have to pay, what do? You don't pay. No, this is the ayah from Surah Al-Baqarah. if someone forgives you for a loan that they gave, there is tremendous reward for that person awaiting on the Day of Judgment. Right? So this is a specific ayah from Surah Al-Baqarah, that if you are able and you know that someone, this is the justice of Islam again, that someone who is in financial need may take a loan from you for something, right? And you're well off, you're completely fine, right? You're completely fine, and you know it will help the person. Then you forgive and you just tell the person, you know what, forget it. I don't need it, I'm not in need of it. This is one of the righteous deeds that a believer can, qualities that a believer can possess. That if he's well off, he gives people loans. It's a genuine case. You know, not those cheaters who take the money and then they say, oh, I don't have money, but there's money, right? Genuine cases. Like, for example, let's say you gave somebody money. I don't know, $5,000, $10,000. Poor guy got robbed. How is he supposed to return your money? And you have money. You don't worry about it, right? Okay, forget it. You suffered. It was beyond your ability. It's not that you intentionally just blew off the money that I gave, right? Or things like, or maybe someone's in a financial difficulty. Give them respite, give them respite, give them respite until you forgive. Like, forget it completely, right? The Jewish system is, if you cannot pay debt, you become a slave to the one who gave you the loan. This is in the Old Testament. This is not from Islam. That literally you become enslaved, right? And a lot of people don't know that this law somewhat still is existent here. Let's say, Allah forbid, you took a loan, or whatever may be the case. You are making payments, you got something in a halal way, like a car, whatever it is, right? Absolutely no riba, 0%, whatever may be the case. Something happened, you lost your job 2 years into the 5-year term. They repossess your car, you will probably still owe them something, whatever may be the case, and you are tarnished your credit score for 7 years. Go read the verse in the Bible. For 7 years you are supposed to be a slave to the one who gave you the loan. So make connection with their laws. And if 7 years pass, then something can happen. So your credit score takes a hit for 7 whole years. Even if you pay it back, no, it's there, right? Even if it goes to the collections, this, that, you paid it off, they still won't remove it. It's very difficult. It's going to stay there for 7 years. But this was an unforeseen thing. Why should I suffer when I lost a job or laid off or some other crisis happened in life, right? So Islam is a very just religion. And this is a tremendous deed, that if someone forgives you for a loan, that's not a problem. Allah will reward him on the Day of Judgment. You enjoy it. This could be a dua. Maybe you are asking Allah that it is becoming difficult for me to repay the loan. Allah help me, Allah help me. And Allah opened His heart to come to you and say, you know what? Forget my loan. I don't need it, right? Okay, assalamu alaikum wa alaikum assalam. Salatul Haja and Ishraq is this the same prayer? If not, can you explain both of them? If these are Urdu words, you have to tell me.
The first one is when you are in need of something,
Yeah.
and you want to make dua and with two nafals to have the need fulfilled.
Oh, that part I know, but okay, so this is what they're, okay, Haja and, okay, so, well, you can pray 2 rak'ah anytime you want help from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right? You can make wudu, pray make the best wudu you can make, pray the most sincere prayer you can pray, and ask Allah. This is also the best way to repent from your sins, any major sin, right? You can ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the form of dua just, or you can also pray, no problem, right? Now, Ishraq, this is for the sunrise, right? This should be the same meaning, right? So, no, that you would have Salatul Duha. That if you, the morning after the sun rises, if you pray that, and that's an even number, 2 up to 8, okay? Rak'atain up to 8 rak'at. If you pray that, that's a different thawab in and of itself. But Salatul Haja and Salatul Duha are not the same prayers.
To elaborate on the question,
Yeah.
it's typical to do the Salat al-Haja at that time.
Oh, okay. No, then it will become a bid'ah. Okay, because that's not, there's no dalil that you have to do it in that morning. Right? And if you do it, consider it. If, for example, a young person wasn't practicing Islam when they reached puberty, but started to at around their late teens or early 20s, would they still fall? Yes, inshallah ta'ala, that's still considered youth. Alright? Shab, in the Arabic language, you're pretty much up to the age of 40, you're in your prime. Right? So, let's suppose 15, 16 years old, you didn't have the guidance from Allah, then all of a sudden, Allahumma barik, you got the guidance at when you were 20. Perfect, no problem. Now, do your job from that day onwards. You're still young. Inshallah ta'ala, you'll be included. Any questions from, yes, brother.
Thank you for your very nice and educated lectures, but I have few things that I need to ask for my clarification and hopefully the others' clarification too. Islam is a very scientific religion, and this body has been created by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You mentioned about sweating and sweat.
Yeah.
Scientifically, this body does require sweating a lot of sweat, because not only it eliminates fuzla or dirty things out of your body, but to cool down your body. The body that does not sweat, so like if you take it that a body that does not sweat at all, that body cannot live or resist heat build up inside the body for more than 24 hours. So how would you say in your context that what you say about the hadith and this scientifically, because Islam is a very scientific religion. Second thing is, I'm sorry, I have a list of questions and then you can
go ahead.
one after the other. You quoted one of the hadith, says Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said that if it was Fatima bint Muhammad, I would have chopped her hand. That was authentic hadith. What Islam says and what is the relevance, if there is a conflict in the society, in the community, but after that he has been behaving and everything very nice Islamically, does the Islam say that forbid him forever? Or can he be a part of the society or the part of the community or the part of the administration and everything? Or the Islam just says, no, once convict, get forever. The third thing is, you mentioned Lut and the wife of Hazrat Lut. What I understand or I remember is that society was Sodomist society, that was a city called Sodom and that was destroyed, and not the homosexuality. There's two different meanings. Now, if that society was Sodom or Sodomist, why the wife of the prophet was involved in it? That's another thing. Now, you say that man is the Imaam or the leader in the house, in the family. Yes, that is true. However, wrongly or rightly, we are living in a capitalist society. Down here, many of women work equally or maybe more than equal. Plus the pressure of the society and everything. So it's right that as long as the Sharia, there's a man has a complete control to rule it. But many decisions and situations comes across where women can have a better input. I'm not talking about the religiously or Sharia-wise, but the practical life day to day. How about what is the role of wife or daughters in that situation? Because if the message is clearly that man is the leader and that's it, that people may misuse it or go differently, because there is a situation where women need to be respected as highly as possible. Because Huzur Akram sallallahu alaihi wasallam, whenever Hazrat Fatima tried to reach her, he used to stand up and greet her. Last not but the least is,
I have only few hairs left and I don't want to pull them out.
sir, this is my chance, let me finish,
Yes,
please.
ask one question.
Why would I ask one question when I have a multiple questions?
Because he's going to forget. He doesn't
No,
He
I
will not
don't
forget
remember.
it. If you forget it, I will remind you.
Yeah. Go ahead. Last question.
Last but not least,
Yeah.
sadaqah, you mentioned it that the best thing is to give a sadaqah in such a way that your left hand does not know about the right hand. However, there's a situation when the people are encouraged to give sadaqah openly, not to post themselves, but to encourage other people or little bit of competition so you can get it more and more sadaqah for the donation reason. So can you please elaborate
Okay,
on
so
that? And then one more thing.
Yeah.
This is not today's lecture, but one of your khutbah.
Yeah.
You mentioned that, and I know, I have firm belief that there should not be any grave or graveyard in the masjid, or masjid should not be a graveyard. How would you explain that in the Masjid al-Nabawi, there's a grave of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam? So why these two things? I mean, can you please explain?
Okay. All right. So the first question was about the sweating.
Yes.
Of course, we know this is unhealthy. If you were to stop yourself from sweating, this is unhealthy. Now, for anything, when it comes to issues of the dunya and talking about issues of the akhirah, which is ilmul ghayb, the two are not the same. There's no way we can compare the two, right? Like, for example, in Jannah, no one will urinate or defecate. But again, it's unhealthy. If somebody doesn't urinate or defecate, he'll end up in the hospital sooner or later, right? So these are issues of ilmul ghayb. That is a different life. Certain things of our body structure, of course, Allah will change, right? So that's the only explanation, that this is of ilmul ghayb. The situation is completely different in the akhirah and compared to the dunya with our bodies, right? Then the other question was about yeah. Now the thing is, if you read in Surah Hud, the issue was Lut alayhi salam's wife was not here, just quiet down, inshallah, if you can listen to the answers quietly. Lut alayhi salam's wife was not homosexual, but the thing is, her face never changed. She never ever told them, stop doing what you're doing, it's wrong. That's the reason why she was destroyed with the town. And also, if you read, as Jibreel alayhi salam told Lut alayhi salam, no matter how many screams and cries you hear, do not look back. Him and his two daughters, they kept this command, but his wife was so soft-hearted, they were her friends. So when she heard the screaming and crying as they're being destroyed, she looked back, my people. And that is when she was destroyed as well. Right? So it was, she never stopped them. She never even told them what you're doing is wrong. Right? Because silence is approval. That's the concept. Okay? Then the third question was
Equality of women.
This is, of course, the general rule, right? That the husband is the leader of the house. But it's also haram on the husband. We have many other ahadith. Husband cannot become a tyrant, right? He has to treat his wife like a human being. Not just a human being, a Muslim, a believing woman, right? She has honor, she has dignity, right? His children, he has to respect them as human beings, right? So he cannot tyrannize the family. Then it's a major sin upon him. But what this hadith refers to, that people have, Allah gave certain people authority, that don't try to change that system. Just like parents, right? Parents have an authority over the children. But there are sometimes parents can be wrong. The children are allowed Islamically to have a civil conversation, get their point across. The parents are supposed to listen. Same thing with the husband and wife. And there are many examples from the Prophet's own life, right? Where he listened to his wife. He could have easily made dua, Jibreel would have come down, gave him some advice. But he took the advice from his wife, right? So yeah, the man of the house is the Amir, but the deputy is the wife. The husband maybe, let's take the example of a housewife, right? The husband is working every day. She's the one who's inside the house, taking care of the things, looking after the children. For sure, she knows certain things that happen in the house that the husband doesn't know. And it is fard on the husband to take the advice before making the decision for the house. You can't, because you haven't been around. How are you going to make a just decision without first consulting everybody? So this is the balance of Islam. Yes, he's the authority. You give him that respect, but at the same time, he's supposed to openly talk, this, that, and then move forward. And then the next question was about...
Convict.
Oh, yeah. So, the way the Prophet ﷺ's society worked, if someone drank alcohol publicly, he was lashed 40 times, and that was done with. He would not be touched or talked about until, Allah forbid, he committed the same crime again. People moved on with their life, right? But of course, at the same time, the Sahaba that got punished, they were sincerely showing that they have changed. So let's suppose if someone stole, you don't get your hand cut off for stealing $10, but that doesn't mean steal $10, right? Right? But, whatever the case, the person lost his hand. And he remembers this as a lesson for life. Then, mashallah, he becomes one of the most honest people. There's nothing wrong with this, right? The person is given, he has already done his time. He's paid his dues. He paid a hand, right? He got caught, the punishment was given, he has the chance to rectify his life. And if he changes, no one has the right to remind people of their past sins. There's a specific hadith, you're not supposed to do this. That people, and I was talking about this last week, let's say, I know in this community, there are many men, brothers and sisters who used to work in a casino 5-10 years ago, whatever may be the case, but now they have halal jobs. We have no right to go and say, hey you, just 5 years ago you were in the casino business. No, say alhamdulillah, he was able to leave it, right? You cannot, it's haram for Muslims to remind another Muslim about their past sins. This is not right. We are not Allah, right? So we only judge by what is apparent. The person committed a crime, he did his time, now he gets a second chance. And as long as he remains good, we keep letting him live freely, not keep reminding, right? And then the last one was...
charity openly.
Okay, so this is from the Sunnah. There were many times, you'll find a hadith in Bukhari and others, if someone needed help, the Prophet ﷺ would stand on the minbar and make a call for the fundraiser. Someone needs food, someone needs garments, right? He would make an open call, so-and-so needs clothes, so-and-so needs food. Who will step up and help his brother? Then someone will step up. Or the Prophet will make a call, a war is coming, who will step up with the camels and weapons? And Uthman would be the first one to raise his hand, right? So this is something, it again goes back to the niyyah, that it's not about boasting, but also when these public calls are made, we also know the one who gives the first, for his encouraging, he'll inshallah get the reward of everybody that follows, right? So it's always good to be the first one to donate. Teach people, encourage them. So that's why I said this is only known to you and Allah, why you have done it. But the point is, you have ikhlas to the point that literally your left hand doesn't know what your right hand gave. That inside, that's your feeling, right? So
the last one is graveyard of Rasulullah.
So now the thing is, the grave, Masjid al-Nabawi, which came first, the grave or this huge masjid that we see now? Let's ask the question again.
No, that was the house he was buried in, right?
Which came first, the grave of the Prophet or this huge masjid that we see today? The grave. How can you remove the grave of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam and do? This is an exceptional case, okay? Because that was the apartment of Aisha radiallahu anha. And this is a hadith, it is fard. Wherever any prophet dies, his body has to be buried at that exact point. It is only special case for the Anbiya of Allah. Us, we can drive half an hour, go to the graveyard, no problem. But for prophets and messengers, the exact spot of their death is where they are supposed to be buried. So he died in the lap of Aisha, on the lap of Aisha radiallahu anha. So they buried him in Aisha radiallahu anha's apartment, that exact spot. Now, as the Muslims grew throughout the ages, the masjid expanded. Now, what people got into a, bit of a pickle of a situation. We can't make a circular thing, so that's why they have those 7 huge, fat doors all around the grave. And this was what the ulama had given at that time, that at least make it look like something completely separate. So they have thick walls, right? And this is to the best of their ability, right? And it's because of the number of people that has increased that the masjid has expanded. So it's a specific situation, but this is the explanation, that it is completely barred by thick walls. But if you go, like in our countries, the masajid that have a grave, it's literally just the grave. No walls, no nothing, and it's inside the masjid, right? And the masjid came first, then the grave.
Yeah, they have the access for the flowers,
Yeah, so that's the difference, inshallah. Alright, so let's see, last question from the sisters here. Last 2 questions, alright. Okay, this is just a reminder. There's crochet classes every Friday with the youth group that we have at the masjid on Fridays. So the girls also get to do some sewing and stuff. Learn that, inshallah. Alright, is it permissible to have a male Quran teacher? You can have a male teacher if it's like, let's say if it's online, whatever may be the case. Let's say if there was a class here, let's say the class that on Sundays that my wife does. If for some reason, whatever reason is, she wasn't able to make it, I'm not going to do it, but I'm just giving just the explanation. That I came, I'm sitting here, the women are behind the screen, and they're reciting, I correct their tajweed. This is completely fine, right? It's a whole group of women and they're behind the screen. What is wrong and not allowed is if you have a male and a female teacher alone in a room. It doesn't matter if it's Quran or physics or math or whatever may be the case, right? So this is not allowed. Especially, it doesn't matter about age or this or that. These are certain things that women should learn from women, right? To safeguard everybody's honor and to keep the shaitan away, right? So this is not something that anyone should do. The ulama did not permit this. It was not done this way. And you will hear so many stories all over the world about anything. Private tutor comes, either the girl runs away with the private tutor or something worse happens, right? The private tutor takes advantage. And I hope the sisters can listen to this. This is something I want to tell you. I've been coming here for 11 years. Some years ago, I had heard of a situation, and that was actually, I never told anybody. The day when I joined as the Imaam here, that was one of the first things I had the niyyah, that if I find the person, I'll call the FBI, I'll make a khutbah about the person. But alhamdulillah, the person left town. A few years ago when I was here for one of the Jummahs, one of the parents, a mother, clearly, it wasn't a lie, it was very well proven. A local brother used to teach Quran, and I'm talking about your community. He molested her 9-year-old daughter. This is your community. Right? So when I came here I said, I'm a visitor. Just tell whoever you can so they don't go and learn from him or whatever may be the case. Alhamdulillah, after I came here, he's not in town anymore. Right? So you have to you don't ever think, oh, no, not in my home, not this. That is a wrong way to think. Because this is widespread. This is everywhere. So protect your daughters. Don't let the shaitan come. Even the best of people can slip. The best of people, because we don't know when shaitan will strike who. Right? So this is why from Islam, you have to follow the rules of the mahram, non-mahram situation. Right? There are, of course, just for clarification, there are situations where it may be needed. Like, let's say, this is the hadith in Sahih Muslim. Aisha radiallahu anha said, when the men, the mujahideen, used to come wounded, us women would attend to their wounds. Meaning, what were they? Doctors and nurses of that time. This was a specific situation. People are not available, right? So same thing, even when it comes to doctors. As a woman, you first look for a female doctor. Maybe, qadar Allah, the disease you have, you need a specialist. Maybe you have a heart problem, your primary physician who's a woman, this is beyond her capacity and you need extra attention. And the only cardiologist available is a man. You take your husband or son, whatever it is, you still go for your medical treatment. You don't stay at home and say, no, I'm not going to go, and then you cause your own death. This is not allowed, right? So those are special situations. But when it comes to teaching things like this, you're not being forced. It's not a matter of life and death, right? So you have to stay safe and not allow these things, because this was never allowed. Even when Aisha radiallahu anha used to teach, and she's the mother of the believers, no one is going to even think wrong about her. She used to teach behind the screen to the men, right? Because that's the other extreme. In many cultures, they think if a woman is an alima or whatever it is, she's not allowed to teach men. If Allah has given her knowledge, there are many, many female scholars throughout history, but they would all teach behind the screen, right? They didn't just sit in front of the men and start teaching. So we want to follow these Islamic guidelines, especially when it comes to learning his religion. We want to do it and learn the right way, right? So this is something important. And
I think that there is a hadith, and you can check the authenticity of the hadith. One day a blind man came in the house of Rasulullah and Hazrat Aisha came in the room without covering her, and Huzur Akram was a little bit annoyed, and he said that, Aisha, why you did not cover yourself? And she said that he's a blind man, he cannot see me. And Huzur Akram replied that, yes, he's a blind man, but you are not blind, you can see him.
Yeah. So it goes, the issue of this is basically upon both genders. That you take your precautions, don't just leave it to the other person. Yeah, you have a question. And it'll be the last one, inshallah.
What if a female is in school and then the teacher asks her, and the teacher's a guy, and he asks her to stay after class because she did something or something? Is that haram?
No, it would still, these are the situations, there's a lot of problematic situations. That's why we keep emphasizing Muslim school, right? And if I'm not mistaken, I think 2 months ago, was it principal or assistant principal from the Atlantic City High School? Pleasantville. And he's see, this just happened a couple of months ago. So Islam closes the door on any evil from before even happens, right? So that's the wisdom behind these rules and regulations, right? So you would have to do your best to maneuver around it. But the point is, understand why these rules are there. It's to protect everybody, right? Yeah.
Just a comment about the situation, and I think if you agree, we can encourage our kids that if in case anything situation happens in school and they are abused by the teacher, male or female,
doesn't matter.
Don't be shy. They should immediately come and report to the parents that this is what happened, and they should not keep quiet. Either brother, sister, they should.
Yeah, no, this is extremely important. And I know culturally speaking, it becomes a tough pill to swallow for many parents, but this is not from Islam, and you should not be this way, okay? Sisters, if you can keep it down. If Allah forbid, any child, and I'm talking to you young brothers and sisters, Allah forbid you are faced in this type of sexual abuse type of situations, do not stay quiet. Immediately tell your parents so they can take the proper actions and also get you the proper emotional support and all these things that need to happen. That's from Islam. Don't hide it. The shaitan will tell you, no, you have been dishonored, this, that. The fault is not yours. It was a crime that was committed against you, right? So speak up to your parents, things like that. Don't stay quiet about these type of situations.
What happens if the kid is scared or afraid of the parents, because what will be the response of the parents?
Yeah.
Immediately parents.
So this is a good point. If you have a situation where, again, Allah forbid, that if this happened and the parents aren't the most understanding of the situation, come and talk to me. Or if you're a girl, talk to my wife, talk to the management. We will sit down with your parents. This is actually one of the obligations of the Imam, the management over the community. That these type of situations, we want to solve it together. Right? So our door is always open, but of course, may Allah never put any of you in this type of situation. Well, there's a hadith, Fatima radiallahu anha had mentioned that the best of the women are those who do not see, the non-mahram men. And neither do they see her. Okay, so this is in line with what you were saying as well. So this is another hadith. Okay, inshallah. Just a quick